Howdy cowboys, August 2025. Today we are checking out a solo gold bar farm over in Van Horn. This one's for all your PlayStation riders out there. You'll need be in a solo lobby made by setting your MTU down to 800. Alright, let's get to work. Standing here in Van Horn, you want to set your camp right here. Pick the Bayonova spot. Nope, not that one. Still not the right one. And no, I ain't cutting this footage. You're seeing every step, so there ain't no extra questions later. And there it is, the one we need. Now saddle up and ride on over to this spot. You've got to follow every single move I make, especially the route. Along the way, a side mission popped up. Take it out quick, wipe everyone out. If you wander off the route, the treasure map might not show up on the tree. Stop right here. Time to spawn a chest under that bridge. Pull out your southern Roanoke map. You ought to feel your controller rumble when the chest appears. If there is no vibration, open any other map. Then go back to southern Roanoke. I ain't skipping a thing here either. Alright, I felt it. The chest is there. Now climb down under the bridge. Walk up to it. But don't open it. Once that yellow icon shows on your map, open the main menu, go to online, then camp. That'll lock in the chest position. Back on your horse. The chest is sitting tight, and the map's gonna spawn right here. Stick close. First head to the railroad tracks. Then back to the chest. There you can see the treasure map. Ride fast to the chest, grab the gold bar and head back. If the map ain't on the tree, it'll show up after you open the chest. Now hustle back to the tree. Maps here. We are seeing a new method today. Quick join. Grab the map. Pop open the interaction menu by pressing left. Pick quick join. When you see the map name pop up, choose story mission on call. Pay attention. It's the same map I used. Wait for an error message. Then hit OK and pick camp. From here on, you just repeat in the loop. But don't stop watching the video. Next, I'll answer questions you might have. Maps back on the tree. Head for the chest. Grab the bar. Back to the tree. Pick the map, choose story mission on call and load into camp. Now we keep going repeating until I pick up a map from the tree. This time I got a different one I didn't own before. Same deal, choose story mission on call and head into camp. But here's the hitch, after you spawn in camp, that chest won't be on the map anymore. That's why it's best to run this glitch when you own all 29 maps. Don't fret, we'll fix that now. Mount up and ride to the tree. Take the map, choose story mission on call, load into camp. I recommend you farm maps this way until you've got them all. I've already got every single map, so now I need to spawn that treasure chest again. But easy now, we don't want to get a cooldown. Soon as you back in camp, head to fast travel and pick Van Horn. Then ride to the bridge. And look here, another side mission. Deal with it quick, take out every last one of them. Now spawn the chest. Good. Step up to it, go to the main menu, pick online, then camp. And from here, keep on farming those gold bars. Now don't forget the 4 golden rules. You only choose story mission after you've taken the treasure map. Any other time just change the session through the main menu, picking online and camp. If there is an active mission nearby, the treasure map won't show. Legendary animals count as missions too. If Madam Nazar's close, the map won't spawn. If you followed every step right and the map still ain't on the tree, that means you've hit the cooldown. For 72 real-time hours, there won't be no map up there.